Today on Off Topic with Jason and Amanda, I kind of go on a rant about walls and is stolen valor, and my hair also slowly becomes more emo throughout the show. And welcome to Off Topic with Jason and Amanda. You are joining us for the first time. If you're just joining us for the first time, we are a family-friendly podcast that has been compared to Seinfeld. I heard last week. That person may have been me, but it was still said. And I'm not going to argue it. Who am I to argue such a lofty comparison? I would never say that out loud as a direct thing. But if it's hearsay, I will repeat it. Just saying.
Alrighty.
Yeah, there you go. So we're excited here. We're getting closer and closer to having a baby. And we put it out. So our show, of course, is aired exclusively on patriot.tv. And we come on every day at 11, right, over there. But we also post things on X. If you're hearing a 2-year-old...
You mean you.
I mean that... Well, I speak for our family. Not in all my opinions. I should put that. This is not all my family's opinions.
Just
I mean,
we speak for yourself.
Right, we all agree.
I don't want to be held accountable for things that you write.
That generally beheadings will kill a zombie. But that is exclusively my opinion. Right? I don't know what I talk about on X. Anyway, no, but I mean, I share things about our family. Everybody knows that we're having a baby. Right? So I'm out on X and I share that. And I said, hey, we don't have a baby name yet. Every time I say that, we get lots of, well, if it's a boy, it should be this. And if it's a girl, it should be this. We've joked about some of the names we've thought about, right? Get a lot of opinions out there. Some of them are very old school. Some of them are old names. Makes me a little bit nervous. If we're going to choose a name that's appropriate, but maybe look at some of those names. I started thinking, what are the origins? Because, once you get away from a Bible name, you start to think, how is that a popular name? Dorothy is popular because of a movie. Are there a lot of Dorothys in the Bible? I don't think that was like, Abraham's 8th wife or whatever, Dorothy. That was really Isaac. I'm really bad with my Old Testament. Not a fact checker. But yeah, I don't think, there's certain names that people get from, or they just happen to coincide with popular culture.
Right.
So like, if somebody's named Luke, you don't assume it's because it's like you're a Lucas. You're not thinking Star Wars. You're just thinking, oh, it's, Luke is a name it's a common name, right? I say this for a reason. Because there's kind of a coinciding thing with history and names coming through these cycles, right? And we have fun sometimes with our kids. Mostly it's like a labor camp, but occasionally we allow them some joys. The screaming you hear in the background is because she's pushing the butter churner. We don't even let them do it normal. We make them do it on a wheel so they get used to that motion.
Mm-hmm, sure.
I'm not the babysitter right now. That's your mother. So she's going to watch herself. Yeah. Like, yeah, you were supposed to keep her quiet. What happened? As JD fans said, shut the hell up, kid. No, just kidding. Don't say that to our kids. But tonight we're watching a movie. Tonight's a special movie night. And I say it's special because we're watching a weird movie for them, not something that we would normally let them watch. But it's mostly because we're having a tough time talking about immigration, just the concept of immigration, and finding a movie that isn't extremely sad or rife with, like far and away, so if it's got too much violence, too much of nudity or sex scenes or anything like that. Like, it's sort of whatever. And we're not at, like, there's some great Civil War movies. There's some great World War II movies, but there's like not a
Their
whole.
oldest is 8. They're not there yet.
Right. And if you do see an immigrant story, it's usually this very microscopic view of an immigrant. And we're not going to let them watch Gangs of New York yet. I don't think they're ready for that.
No.
But I wanted to try and watch, and I just don't remember it well enough. Titanic, for a couple of reasons. One, we've been trying to explain to our oldest daughter about how music is era dominant, and I wanted to hear Celine Dion's song for the first time in that context, and see if that has a different resonance with her.
Oh man, we should wait till she's older then.
No, I don't care. The whole point is that so we're gonna watch Titanic.
Skipping scenes.
We're gonna skip.
obviously.
There's some scenes we know we've already looked up that we know when we have to skip, and we're ready for that. And we're not gonna like skip. Wait until the hand's on the glass before we turn it. No, we'll be. They'll just be like, oh, how did they end up there? I'll be like, well, they ran across the car lot, and her dress got torn off. I don't remember the story. What she's wearing. She's wearing like her. I mean, even her.
We're just gonna skip all.
The
of that.
point is, I'm just saying, Victorian underwear still looks like a dress nowadays.
Yeah.
So it's not like even
Why is she wearing a dress under her dress?
Yeah, exactly. They don't need to see the part where he draws her like one of the French girls. Okay. Not that we're weird, but it's just, anyway.
They're little.
No,
no
what I
reason
wanted
for
them
that.
to see was that there was a tiered cultural, without watching a documentary, while also telling them about the Titanic, while also explaining about steam, because we pause movies a lot and explain stuff. And I wanted them to see all of this, and we thought, well, watching Kate Winslet butcher some Irish dancing, it's a great way to teach them about their adopted parenthood. I don't know. Your parents' Irish heritage. And this is what they don't do, kids. But we're going to watch it. And I'm just thinking, I feel like we're really settling here. And I know you were like, really? It's like, well, I mean, do you have any other good boat sinking movies? Right?
Does it have to be boat sinking?
No, but can you toss in an immigrant story into that?
No.
Who shows the two-tiered justice system as well as the social hierarchy that used to exist within the monetary. There was not equal protection, right? How Jack is maligned. I mean, the character that is in the movie is maligned. There's just a lot of stuff in there. The expectations of the young lady, how they were expected to conduct
We
themselves.
can calculate the size of the door and see if there actually was space.
We could do a math lesson. We could talk about survival skills. There's a lot of stuff that comes out of that movie that we could pull. But as I have used the limit of my AI because I'm not paying for this wonderful device, I started thinking, unless we're trying to show them thematically something that's happened, are there really all that many accurate movies out there that we're going to actually be able to go, oh, hey, let's sit down and watch? Like I was thinking, okay, we could watch Glory and probably, when they're older, and probably get a pretty good feel for what it was like. But there's some Civil War. Like, other than war stories, is there really anything that's all that?
Yeah, I was going to say, is this coming on because you were watching Band of Brothers again?
Yeah. I'm so bored. There's nothing to watch. I cannot stand anything that's come out. I feel like an old man. It's just, it's dumb. There's no seasons anymore. They're not competing with each other anymore.
Right.
There's just, well, when's my launch date? So it doesn't have to be better than something else to peel your eyes away from it. It just has to be good enough to keep your eyeballs when you're bored.
Yep.
That's it. There's no effort put in anymore. And they've diluted the talent pool. So even though they're pulling in a lot of actors from stage and screen that would normally not do a television project because they have the budget for it, there's also not the same mechanism for promoting it. So now you're getting people that are based on social credit scores. I mean, seriously, it's just weird. It's a weird loop that we're stuck in. It's a death spiral for entertainment, if you ask me. Like I said, conservatives need to create content that's entertaining. We know karate as well. Just saying. Anyway. But I'm saying, minus themes, is there a whole lot of stuff that's out there that's all that accurate? Because I can't think of, because so many of our films are about the hero winning in the end. I mean, sure, there's a film out there about some dog sled that had to go and save some kids from smallpox or something. But, there's not a whole lot of, we don't really stick to truth in Hollywood.
No.
So I was thinking of the short list of, even if you sat here and said, no, like, this really happened. Right? And that was James Cameron's only work, I think, that where we could say that happened, because Terminator hasn't happened yet that we know of. He said yet. Yes. Okay. Dave's correcting me. As I said to my AI that
I'm agreeing with you.
Oh, yeah. Yet. That man might be a visionary.
I hope not.
It's like everyone keeps saying, was Steven Spielberg fed all of his information about aliens, or did he create all these stories that then, using ancient myths, that then all of a sudden perpetuated the idea so into the public consciousness so that people think they see something when they really don't? Very interesting. Anyway, so I was like, hey, Hollywood is not really all that big on that. So I started thinking through your favorite films and things you've seen. What would you say? Are there any accurate fit? Like, for example, if you were going to sit your children down and say, hey, kids, here's what high school is like, would you put on Clueless? And
Mean Girls.
Mean Girls? Like, would you put on Mean Girls and say, this
Probably.
is it our comedy? Is that where we're going to find the authenticity? Because if I had to find somebody and say, this is what the being, and I think there's been one film that I've told you is realistic to me. And I can't remember what film that was. Oh, it was that, it was a comedy. It was the uniform or whatever. It was the Tina Fey movie where she's a journalist in Afghanistan.
Oh,
I can't remember what it's called, but it is genuinely the most...
Whiskey Tango Foxtrot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Obviously an acronym using the military. The point is, that was the most accurate depiction of Afghanistan that I saw. I was like, yep. Was it Afghanistan or Iraq? I think it was Afghanistan.
I can't remember. It's been a while since we saw it.
Yeah. Anyway, it was extremely accurate. I think it was Iraq, actually. But it was so accurate. And I thought, oh, yeah. Outside of that, every single movie, it's just too much. It's too much is added in for dramatic effect or for whatever. I mean, I can't think of a whole lot. And that's making me wonder, are comedies where we put our truth? I mean, my dad told me what it was like being in the Army in the 80s. Late 70s, early 80s. And if you were to ask him, it was actually more like Stripes than it was, like anything else that we make. Like they would sit here and write a Cold War movie about, just, I'm trying to think of what that movie was where the kid plays the war games. Everyone's all serious and whatever. Like, no, everybody hated. At that point, morale was at an all-time low. The 80s it was a weird time for us coming out of, Vietnam, going into, they could call it a recession, but it's a miniature depression. There's no money being put into it. So until Reagan came in, there's no career opportunities in being in the military. and you're in a Cold War. So it's, so my job is or nuclear annihilation, right? That's because that's where we were at. My dad told me there's no money for training. They would go out without shells and go through mock war games and not have any ammunition, not have enough fuel to run. They would just stop and then pretend like, because it just what you would think this is before we started dumping a lot of money in the 80s, which is kind of weird. A side note here. I don't want to get into this subject, and by the time this episode airs, it's going to be old news.
Okay.
Okay. I didn't say we weren't. I said we considered bringing it up, but we were afraid it would be topically. But I want to bring this up. Here is my view on service. It doesn't matter what era you served in. It doesn't matter where you served at. It doesn't matter what your job was. If you left, and even if you were medically discharged for, like, you got your leg hurt or whatever. I know guys that got hurt in boot camp, like broke their back. I knew a guy that broke his back in boot camp and couldn't continue and therefore went into civilian life. He's still a veteran to me. He volunteered. He went. Now, did he make the Marines? Did he become a Marine? No, he didn't. He didn't earn his Eagle Globe and Anchor, right? He doesn't ever profess that. But he broke his back at Parris Island, right? So even to that extreme. But there are 2-year contracts. There are 6-year contracts. There's all sorts of jobs, right? I wanted to ask you, do you feel like, as a former military spouse, excuse me, we're still married, but as the wife of someone who used to be in the military, and we lived in community housing with people, when people deployed, didn't matter where, or if people went away for training where you knew that there would be weapons, where there would be armored vehicles, where there would be a helicopter flights, anything like that. Was that any less worrisome for the moms, or the wives, I should say? I'm sorry, moms. For the wives. I know moms always worry. But was it any less worrisome? Were you any less worried when I went to Germany to go play in the box than when I went anywhere else?
No.
Right? It was still, there was a risk that was higher than if I were an accountant.
Right.
Which has its own risks. Everything in life has its risks. But there were certain points in my military career where the risk was much higher. Even if I have a habit of kind of hurling myself into that. But you were still impacted by that. Plus, extended time away from the family. That impacted our family, right?
Yep.
And that's not something that the average, that's why we get mad at kind of the NFL, not the NFL, the NBA players, all of those people. Because when they make that huge amount of money and then they complain about being away from your kid or whatever, and I'm just like, dude, you just got generational upon generational wealth. Sorry, but you get to be the Lord that bestows the generation an option. So I don't really feel sympathy for you in comparison. Right.
You might be spending time away from your family, but they're taken care of.
Hey, I got to tell you, that's by choice. You could spend your money and have your kid in your hotel room every night if you really wanted to.
Yep.
I mean, why not? Traveling nanny and teacher, why not? You could. You just don't want to put that stress on your kid. But I get the point. Yeah, I'm just saying that don't tell me that's a huge sacrifice in comparison, right? I say this because I forget what I was saying now, but I get whenever I start talking about NBA athletes,
You just want to go on another.
and all of them, I use the NBA because they get the most highest paid per capita, but it makes me so frustrated whenever I hear them complain about life, about anything. It's just like you're the one person. I'm not saying I'm shutting down your free speech. You're the one person that doesn't get to complain about anything at all. Just done. Anyway, what was I talking about before that? Sorry. I got on a little diatribe. Oh, service. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, self.
Yes. Thank you, self. My point is this, because I don't want to butter this up too much. There are all sorts of sacrifices that you make to be in the military. And I honor every single person who has served. And I not only that, honor the children of veterans who had parents who had extended service or the spouses of, because I know how hard that is, and even the mothers of. That's hard. Can't even imagine being a mom and sending your kid off to boot camp. Imagine, like, hey, I know they're going to do this. They have the best support system, but there's still risk involved, right? As there should be. Kamala picked a vice presidential candidate. And he did one of the things that irritates me more than anything. And I think I can say by osmosis, probably irks you pretty badly as well. Right?
Yep.
And that is the charge that I make and the charge that everyone else is making is stolen valor. Now, why did I give that super long preface to bringing that up? Because here's my point. The guy was in an artillery company. Average training destroyed his hearing. If he ever was near any peace, right? It doesn't matter if it was towed artillery. Doesn't matter. His hearing is blasted. He still had to go to the range all the time. He was in for 24 years. Okay, he worked his way up to a rank where he had earned the right to go to the sergeant major course out in Texas. You're well aware of all of this. Meaning, you know about the training progression. Sorry, not about the governor. And there's this huge argument now, and I have read his own words that he was with his unit, had extended his stay in order to become a sergeant, in order to become sergeant major. In order to become sergeant major, he had to agree to finish the course within a certain amount of time and then serve X amount of time. That was the agreement. They invest a ton of money in you. And if you don't, you're reduced in rank upon retirement, right? Which he was. So running around calling yourself command sergeant major, I don't have a problem with. I actually don't have a problem with that. Even though he was reduced after as long as he doesn't say I'm a retired command sergeant major.
Right.
If you say I was a command sergeant, he was. I have no problem with that. It's not the same as failing selection and then saying you're in special forces, right? That's not the same thing. That was the highest billet that he had and the rank he wore on his collar. So he gets to wear that and say that he was that. Doesn't matter if he got reduced to private and then retired. He still gets to say, I was command sergeant major. Yeah, but we have here in your record that you punched your superior officer and they reduced you to private. But yeah, I didn't say that I retired as a command sergeant major. So that'll give him. But this is a guy who's invoked his service to try and sway opinion about key issues you and I both feel very strongly about, including the Second Amendment, where he has said, and I'm going to paraphrase here, that he doesn't believe that we should have weapons on the street here in the United States that are weapons of war, that he himself carried in war. Okay. I'm going to hit the brakes real quick. Amanda, have I said that to you? Wow, I haven't said Amanda in so long. Amanda, have I need this time, so I have to be like, Mom, they want to know the answer. No, but I mean, if I said that phrase out loud.
No.
No, I said if I said that phrase out loud. I should say that phrase. I've been to war. But if I said that phrase out loud in a thing, what would you take from my statement? That statement right there.
That you've carried those weapons in war.
That I've carried those weapons in war. Right.
Because that's what he said.
Right. So here's the charge. The first initial charge was, you didn't go to war. And then they tried to walk it back and say, no, well, he was in Italy, deployed there, which, by the way, for the, actually, I would think Italian deployment is harder on the spouse than it is on, because once you get done with your training to get spun up for your deployment, you're good to go. That's the hardest part for a deployment like that, and support. Now, I'm not knocking but unless they came under attack in Italy under a terrorist attack, that was a cake deployment. Okay. They probably loved it. The spouses, it was very hard for. And I'm not saying it wasn't hard for dads to be away from their kids, husbands to be away from their wives. Probably, artillery company, I doubt there were very many females attached, but there probably were in the medical. I don't know. Again, not taken away from that. Would you consider that worthy of tipping your cap to somebody and saying, yeah, thanks for going out there? I do, right? I mean, it's not your choice where your unit gets deployed.
Right.
You made the sacrifice to leave your home. And by the way, in that rare echelon, you are deployable from there immediately too. But you're probably not actually spun up as a unit to be prepared to immediately fall on. That means to go to a place and be put with your equipment and immediately be able to move into action. But if I were to sit here and look at, we have dogs going nuts. We're going to pause. Okay, and sorry, we had a dog emergency right in the middle of a very serious topic. We don't usually, okay, so to be clear, if this is the first time you're watching our show here on patriot.tv, this is not usually our shtick. We're not very serious about things. We don't usually talk about politics. We do like to talk about politics in the lens of how it affects our lives. I think this is one of those topics that has reached that level of impacts our lives and sits here, and I feel like we are the type of people that should be speaking out about this, about making it a very clear, salient point about why we should not trust somebody like that. Let's get away from all other policy. The guy lied about being deployed on multiple occasions. But when you dig deeper, deployed to Iraq, when you dig deeper, there's a worse problem, because they're trying to now, what happens when you're trying to run and spin the counter narrative is they'll pull a section from an interview where it seems damning, and they'll start releasing that and circulating that, right? So everyone's releasing one where it's true, where he says right there, I carried a weapon in war. And someone else starts putting something out that sort of vaguely says he was in Operation Enduring Freedom. I was like, well, if you expand the whole video, you'll see that he says in the European theater supporting whatever. Now, the obvious person would say, well, that just makes the other one worse, because it's obvious that he's lying, right? That he wasn't in war. But what it instead says, it gets people thinking, like, oh, wait a minute. What do you mean you're saying he didn't? He says right here he was in Europe. No, you're missing the point. He said he went to war. But it gets worse. It gets worse. I'm trying not to yell in the microphone so Dave doesn't have to sit here and, fix that. What gets worse is that his unit got deployment orders, and he was in the middle of a congressional run and made a decision not to stay with his unit. How can I say that with certainty? Because he said so in his own conversation with the media at the time, where he said, yes, we've gotten notification, but, I've been called to serve. And if that's what, that if we do deploy, then I'm going to go with my boys, with my unit. He said it. That's why they probably promoted. Listen, I know a lot about how the internal workings of this work. You don't promote somebody to command sergeant major into a unit that's mobilizing. Here's how mobilization cycles work. They are a 4-year cycle. Okay. There's a stand down after deployment. Okay. Where you basically get new equipment, you get new soldiers, because you want to disperse some of your veterans if possible to other units so they have promotion opportunities, so they can take their experience, and you want to drop them into the cycle that makes sense. I don't want to get all into the nitty gritty of it, but it takes years to do this. There's a readiness cycle. Once you get through getting everybody restocked basically. Then you have to turn around and you have to do your basic soldierly training. Then you have to go into unit specific tasks. Why would I know what unit specific tasks that I'm going to be learning this year, John? I'm glad you asked. I don't know who John is. I just threw that out there. Because I already know what mission I'm going to be deployed to, likely.
Right.
So they know years ahead of time because deployments are planned out that far ahead of time. Now, not a lot of people know that. Training NCOs know that if they've been doing their job for a while. Your commanders know. Your XO, it's your executive officer. Your command sergeant majors. Your command sergeants major. Your other sergeant major, sorry. Your other, that's the plural of, I don't want to keep butchering that, but I don't usually refer to a group. There's not a whole lot of them hanging out usually. It's like one. So it's the sergeant major, but yes, I'm speaking in plural. Your first sergeants will start to find out very quickly. They should know. Your first sergeants know what their deployment cycle, because they know what their readiness cycles are. So they're going to be looking at year 2, then year 3, they're going to go into their training, and then they're going to get their warno. It's a warning order. And it's going to say, look, you're either getting deployed, you're getting deployed, or be ready to be deployed. And they'll know what the likelihood is because they can look at unit strength, right? They'll look and see if they're pushing soldiers into the unit that are more qualified to deploy, which they will do. They'll decide if they're moving as a battalion, if they're going to be separated as company-sized elements. They're going to have to do this because it's important, especially for logistics, to be able to train your companies to integrate with other elements. You can't just drop a company who's used to operating as a battalion. You can't just drop some company supply sergeant in the middle of nowhere and expect them to make it. It doesn't work like that. There's a lot that goes into this. Years of plan. You know this. So you're going to sit here and tell me you took a job, same place you'd been at forever. You took the job. You knew it was coming. And right when everybody was about to deploy and you realized you had a chance of winning your congressional race, you pulled out of the deployment. That's it. Or you just pulled out of the deployment, which is worse.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's worse, but somehow being power hungry is better. But it's worse. Doesn't matter what it was. He took he did 24 years. Yeah, he did. We've had this conversation. He didn't deploy. Okay, he deployed to Italy. I'm not making fun of people who only deployed where they were sent. And you know what? That's fine. But did you sign the dotted line again? Because I did. I did specifically to get deployed. Because I knew I wanted to replace anybody. But the point is that I signed up knowing I was deploying. I went to a specific unit to deploy. Fought to get deployed. So the idea that you would sit here and abandon your people when you knew it, and argue, well, I've done my bit. You signed up. You knew it. You signed up for the promotion. You signed up because you liked the health benefits. You could have retired. Nobody would have said anything. But you signed on and then went through the deployment cycle and then went, oh, man, they're actually going to deploy us. Like our number got picked. And we're not just getting deployed to Italy this time. We're going into the belly of the beast right when that beast is hot. Can you look up the exact date that was, please, that they deployed? You can just look up the year he was first elected. The point I'm making is, I don't even have a problem with if you just, okay, I have a massive problem if you quit and tuck tail. I have a massive problem with that. But if you'd retired at 24 years, to whatever, 20 years, you'd retired at 20 years, you just said, I'm done. Okay, you retired, but you knew we were in a war. You took that re-enlistment bonus that I know they were giving out. You took that promotion with the higher pay and all the other benefits that come with it. And there are a lot of benefits of being a command sergeant major. So then, right in 2005, when it's all heating up, when the wars is when we got the insurgency started, when we don't have proper equipment, they turn around and he bails on his guys. Because I got to tell you, you're in an artillery unit. You know what you're doing when you go when you go to Iraq?
No.
You're doing security. You're doing base security. You're doing FOB security. You're doing cop security. That's a combat outpost. You might move in with a striker battalion and support them, support their FOB so they can move missions. Or worse, you might end up on route clearance patrol, which you're not trained for, or just supporting convoys. You're not an artilleryman. You're not sitting behind sandbags. Not that that's artillery is like the first thing that the enemy goes counter battery tries to take out. So I'm not saying that being in the artillery section is some easy thing. It's not. But I've been on an artillery base. First of all, you can't sleep there. And secondly, wear earplugs. Don't go to sleep without the earplugs. It will end up with you needing hearing aids for the rest of your life. I heard from a friend. So he knew he was going in and he was going to end up on a security mission. He knew it. Meaning the crap detail. That's when his boys needed him. That's when they needed him the most. That's when they needed the person who knew every person in their hometown. That's when they needed the person who they could go to. See, people don't understand. Your commander is your dad. Your XO is your stepdad. Actually, your XO is your stepmom. Okay, and she doesn't like you. And your sergeant major, for all intents and purposes, is your mom. Now, what I mean by that is traditional hierarchy, traditional relationships. When you need something, when the insides hurt, food, mail, all that stuff. You go to your sergeant major. You don't go to your commander with that. In other words, that's the person that probably outside of, if you had a really good commander, a really good platoon leader, really good first sergeant, you could end up with a really good relationship with them. But usually that's a trickle down effect of the type of culture that happens within an institution, right? So if you have a really good sergeant major, you're going to have really good first sergeants who have good... Anyway, you get my point.
Right.
But a first sergeant's not there to be your mom. The point is that that's a sergeant major's job. That's the final stop. And they just left. He just left. And that's I can't imagine what that would feel like. I know how deployments work. They shift people around, but I remember specifically, and you know this, Sergeant Major. I know a sergeant major that was at pre-deployment and was yanked from a deployment due to a medication issue and couldn't deploy.
Yep.
And that sergeant major cried. Couldn't believe they were yanking them from the deployment. I'm using...
Yep.
Because I don't want to give away who this person is. I've had many he and she sergeant major. The point is, did they not vet this guy, or why are we accepting this? People are trying to gaslight people about it. We're sitting here, and it infuriates me to a degree.
I don't see why it's even an argument.
Which part?
Any of it. I mean...
That he's a dirtbag? For doing it?
I mean, that's obvious. But, I mean, that situation alone, how can you trust someone with those bad qualities and bad reputation to be the vice president?
I mean, forget what he did when he was governor. Oh, wait, don't forget what he did, because he was a mess. But, he let his state burn, the most populous city in his state burn during the riots. and said that and gave people an out.
But just
I understand your rage.
that one thing alone, you bailed on people that needed you right at the time that they needed you. Why would we put you in the White House?
Here's the
whatever,
craziest part. He could have been elected to Congress and still served while he was over there. He could have. Everyone like, why would have? Who's gonna open their mouth and say, "We elected you, and you dare go off to the war we started and are cheering for"? It would have been a legacy item. It really would have. No, he ran away. He ran away. He's a product of 2004, 24 years. That means he came in and, oh, look, 1980. Just saying. Now, I'm not saying, by the way, I'm not putting everybody into a group, obviously. But when the going got tough, he went AWOLs. That's it. And how you could trust anyone. And here's the craziest part about the left.
That sounds like someone we shouldn't be depending on.
No. But here's the thing about what's going to be happening here. They're pushing, right now, you've noticed that we're not talking about Ukraine at all. Right? It's not being talked about at all. Don't give me this Olympics are sucking all the air out of the room. Okay? Nobody is so much into the breakdancing at the Olympics that they have forgotten that there's a war in Russia and Ukraine, right? Whoever wins this, they're not making any. They've been told to shut up, is what it is. Zelensky's been told, shut your mouth right now. We got an election. We do not want people being reminded that we have a war that we've committed to, that we've straight up said we'll put boots on the ground. So we're going to end up with a person who was never elected, well, never got the nomination through a vote. Because this isn't about this election. Let's make no doubt, based on track record, this election is about the cult of personality. You're either anti-Trump or pro-Trump. That's how they're trying to define this race.
Yep.
Which is usually something that the incumbency has as a weakness. And somehow Harris, they've been able, the media is working complicitly with her to keep her distant from all of the horrible decisions that apparently she was involved in up until they turned out to be horrible decisions. The economy, the border. I love how she issues that she has a border plan. I'm like, wait a minute. Weren't you the border czar? Right? Did I make that up? Did I just like... They're trying to create an artificial Mandela effect.
I know.
And so we have this situation where she's, just, it's awful. Anyway, the point is, you're going to end up with, if the media has their way, a guy like Walz is vice president. So a guy who abandoned his unit and wants to take your kids away from you if you don't transition them will now be sending your kids to Ukraine to fight against Russia in a war that we should be doing everything we can to stop. Doesn't that seem...
Unless you do transition them, because then they can't be deployed.
It's Democrats that have pushed this narrative for so long that they have consensus of their internal... You're making a face. Oh. Okay. They have this need to put out there that there's a consensus within their cabinet. All the top decision makers are involved. It isn't just me. I don't know if it's because they like to pretend, because whenever something goes right, they do take the baton, right? But I don't know if it's like they like to pretend that they're trying to share their glory, or pretend there's some consensus needed when there really is no consensus needed, or if they really are involving them. But you saw during the Obama years that they had Biden whenever they could there at the Situation Room, blah, blah, blah. And now you had Harris at the. I mean, Harris has been at Biden's hip for every single. It's like she was a puppet master, and that little human puppet that is Biden,
Mm-hmm.
who just got shorter again. If you didn't notice, but Biden. But they turned around and they're trying to separate her from all these policies, which is insane. And we as family, like, how expensive have groceries gotten?
I don't even want to go there.
I mean, would we even consider buying a new car right now? No. I mean, thank the Lord, and I do mean that we got in at a decent, not even a good, a decent mortgage rate when I retired.
Yep.
Because otherwise, if we waited just one more year, we would be renting. And that's a fact. Or we'd be living in, like Idaho. Because the market ran dry. And now it's so artificially inflated and we're set up for a collapse. And I don't think anybody's understanding what that means. Like, it sounds weird, but you should spend your money now. Because you're not going to have it. It doesn't matter if you have it, the value of it is going to be so low soon if we don't do something. And I think that's such the importance of the Trump presidency. Just opening up oil exploration to unlimited factors would just drastically shift the table back in our favor. But I think about this liar. I think about what it means to somebody like you. And I'm going to go, why her? Because we don't talk about this a lot, but how often did you worry about me? Not my ability to take care of myself, but I mean the situations in which I would find myself.
A lot.
A little bit, a lot bit.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah. I put you through that. That's horrible. That's why I'm going to sit through this natural childbirth like a man and deal with it. Suck it up. Suck it up, Buttercup. Because I can only imagine the stress that you went through. I've always said that you had the harder job. Doesn't matter how hard anything I was doing was. It was harder for you. The exception of maybe a few courses I went to. I don't think the time I was away versus the physical effort I put in was worth it. I think it was probably about comparable. But anything else, and when I think about the idea that somebody who just abandoned his people, that lack of empathy for that, how that's gonna trickle down.
Why wouldn't he do the same to us if he had to?
Yeah. And these are folks talking about greater good. That's scary.
I don't think he knows what good, let alone greater good, is.
He's gonna have no problem sending the mothers and or the sons and daughters of some other state to another state to confiscate our weapons. They said that's what they want to do. I don't know why anybody they're going to find a way to do it. These are people who've found a way to forgive billions of dollars in student debt. I don't think they're going to have any problem figuring it. They just need to master the media narrative, and they've learned how to do that. I mean, it feels like we're living in some sort of weird dystopian future. How quickly did that creep up on us, right?
Yeah. Much faster than I thought.
Things that would have sounded insane a decade ago, it used to seem like it would have to be so much longer than that. It's like along the technology curve. As the technological curve goes, you're just like, oh, that would have wowed me, but whatever. This idea of I'm trying to think. How many times do I have to see a video of a grown man dressed as as a caricature of a woman doing extremely lewd acts in front of children?
Because, natural born women do that all the time.
But I'm supposed to say, what part of tolerance is that? There is nothing in there, but there's nothing but the sexualization of children. There's nothing but that. That's the breaking down of the very fiber.
Not brave or strong or whatever.
No.
Whatever other words they use for it.
It's pornography.
It's disgusting.
Yes.
It is not redeeming in any way at all.
No, it's not even artwork. It's not even art. It's not even and to sit here and see this embraced to a point where I have to
Now,
imagine.
if you want to say going to a drag show meant for adults is a type of art form,
I mean, it's a crude art form, but I'm not one to sit here and comment on people's version of comedy.
right? I mean, that's a you decision,
Yeah.
not a child
Yes.
friendly environment.
I don't think we're gonna watch Titanic tonight. I'm just thinking about her showing her ankles during that scene. No, it's it, the fact that you and I have debates, consistent debates about how to expose our children to new ideas, how to ease into things. For example, we talk about this this sort of complex idea of teaching our daughter to be independent while also me trying to be show her that being gentle with her is how she should be treated, but at the same time, like there's so many conflicting, and you just have to, it's such a path. But the fact that we sit here and consider how different ideas can be shown to her and how that could alter her worldview, shape her worldview, put an emphasis on certain things is it's like, just for example, the book series, the Magic Treehouse book series, which I don't mind plugging, even though we are not paid by them. The Magic Treehouse series is one of those books that, she's allowed to explore the world, but she's in a huge safety net with that. Right? The fact that we care that much and there's a side that so grossly doesn't, that just wants to make a blanket decision that this is what is healthy for every single child. And then oddly enough, they end up with the outcome that they projected. Right? You overstimulate and introduce a topic that children are not mature enough to handle, then they become little parrots. And then all of a sudden they start expressing an ideology and they see where the praise is given. And then all of a sudden, suddenly, I mean, just the other day, our 4-year-old insisted to us that he is, in fact, a spider. This is true. He is a spider.
Yep.
And our other son has insisted that he is a dinosaur. So we have a dinosaur and a spider.
Yep.
And our oldest daughter is absolutely positive that there's an alternate universe where there's a unicorn version of her. None of these things are true. I can say that.
I don't know about the alternate universe thing.
I don't know what God has in store for us. But that said, our youngest son is not a spider. I know this.
Says he is.
I know this because I saw you give birth to him and you weren't friendly with any spiders. So that's it. That's the only two things I need to know. Wait, I'm just kidding. I just need to know that you weren't friendly with spiders. But the fact that he's, there's so many kids are allowed to have that imagination. But if we were to encourage him that he was a spider and keep it, I mean, can you imagine that? Putting a little nest in his room, webbing, convincing
feeding him bugs.
At some point, what is that going to warp everything else in his world? Yeah, feeding him bugs.
Gross.
But even the kid would sit here at some point and say, "Nah, this is kind of dumb.
This is getting weird."
Yeah, but what if you only praised them when they kept reaffirming that idea that they were a spider or a dinosaur? I mean, and I know enough children's books have been written about this, so I'm not stating anything new. Meaning counter.
Right.
Right. You can't be whatever you want. I hate to be the one to break it to you, but no, you can't. Except for that one lady. You read me this is the greatest thing I've ever read. We'll end on a funny note. There's an Olympic gold medalist.
Oh, yes.
she won the Olympic gold medal for trampoline. What is her job? Well, she wrote her dissertation on dinosaur echolocation.
There's some sort of communication.
Communication through communication. In other words, she's a paleontologist. In other words, he said, don't tell your 7-year-old that they can't talk to dinosaurs and jump on trampolines. And jump on a trampoline and be a world champion. Don't destroy that dream. That is technically plausible. Just like that astronaut Navy SEAL. Doctor.
Yeah.
Mom, I want to be an astronaut. That sounds great, little Bobby. I also want to be a doctor. Okay. I mean, I guess they could use it. And a Navy SEAL. Listen, bud. I don't want to be the jerk, but I've seen your dad, and I'm not sure you have the genes for this. No, I can do it. Okay, fine. Give it a whirl. Then it happens, and you're like, wow, I feel like a real jerk. Should have really encouraged, or maybe I did the right thing. I don't know. It turned out.
Maybe I fueled the fire there.
Yeah, I was like, you never believed in me. I'm like, is that what drove you to do what you did? You should be thanking me. Parenthood's hard. Gotta see whatever works. If I'd encouraged you, you would have quit at T-ball. Now you're in the majors, kid. Why'd you leave? Sorry, I have a dark childhood. Okay, as I said, we'll end on a high note.
Former National Security Advisor Lieutenant General Michael Flynn pleaded guilty today to lying to the FBI.
He was one of the most respected generals in the military.
Every American needs this historical DVD keepsake. Flynn delivered the truth, whatever the cost. Hand signed by General Michael Flynn. Order now at the Patriot TV store. Use promo code PTV at checkout to get special savings. The Patriot TV store, a secure, hassle-free shopping experience.